a lot of offices are realizing in dentists is you're not paying attention to your phones to see when are your phones ringing. Are you truly missing phone calls? So moving to a company like Mango is how you can actually start to pay attention to what's going on with your phones. Are they ringing? Are you missing calls? Because if you ask a lot of your team members, they would say, no, we're not missing any calls. But when you actually realize that they're doing 16 things at once, and they don't even realize sometimes they miss calls. This is the most simplest thing that you can do right now to impact your practice. Well, hello, everyone. We hope that you are seeing us live somewhere in the world. We are excited to be coming to you from Nashville and Pensacola, Florida, not our homes, but two various places in the country. And we are testing new technology here. So this is our first time doing live on one application and trying to stream it live into other places in your ecosystem. So hopefully you're seeing it somewhere. If not, this is recorded and you'll be able to come back. So if you see it for a second and it disappears, feel free to come back. But welcome to our webinar today. My name is Laura Nelson. I'm here with Ryan. Hi, Ryan. How are you today?
Good, thank you. In Nashville, you and I are both on the road, but it's so important what we're going to talk about today that we had to put this webinar together wherever we are in the United States.
Yes, exactly. We were just talking about how you just have to make this happen. Well, so Ryan and I had a conversation about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the conversation was around the importance of phones, which is not a new conversation. However, Ryan's team and his clients have discovered something new that we want to address in this webinar with you that we thought was important enough to squeeze this into our schedules to talk about. So what we were going to talk about today, or what we're going to talk about today, is why your dental practice is losing 1 in 4 new patients, which is not necessarily a new piece of information. However, we are going to talk about what's different going on right now at the end of 2025 and into 2026 that we haven't seen before. So before we get started, let's just do a quick introduction. If you don't know who we are, I am Laura Nelson. I am the founder of Front Office Rocks. I started Front Office Rocks 15-ish years ago, specifically because of phones. I felt when I got into this industry that the one thing we didn't do well enough was train employees on the phones. We hired them. We said, here's all the insurances we belong to. Here's the dental codes that our doctors do. And here are the phones, go. And then we would find that, dentists would complain about their not enough new patients and their marketing's not working. And why is my practice not growing? But we weren't actually seeing them train employees on the phones. And the time that I started Front Office Rocks, there was really only one other company out there who taught phone skills in our industry, and they taught scripts. Give your employee a script and they follow a script, which I'm not a fan of scripts because I think when you have a script, you just follow the script and it's not real. It sounds robotic, which is ironic now with what I'm going to say my next career move is. And it's just too regulated. So I believe that we need to train our team members on the phones, but we need to let them speak in their own words and they need to understand what they're saying. So that's why I started Front Office Rocks. I do have a background in change management, human resources. I've been a trainer for a very long time. And then most recently came on as the VP of AI for Mango Voice, which is why it's ironic. I'm talking about robotic scripts because I now train AI to help us with the phones, which we'll talk about more later in this webinar. So I've been doing phone training, phone skills, team training for a very long time. And I'm excited because Ryan and I have really started honing in on how to help dental offices get better in this area, which ultimately gets better for new patients and marketing and all of that. So that is who I am. Ryan, tell everybody who you are and what your background is.
Yeah, so I've been in the dental space since 2019. Prior to that, I spent a lot of time in the attractions industry working for museums, a zoo, the Walt Disney Company. And in 2019, I just had a connection to a dentist, and he was like, "Hey, we need some fractional marketing." And so I said, "Okay." Kind of changed careers, jumped into that, and since then we have grown to a fairly larger dental marketing and analytics company, which has been great. So we have practices all over the United States, very data driven, big on numbers, which you'll see today. and a big on connection between operations and marketing. So I think this is perfect. We talk a lot about phone data and how it is, like when you were saying answering the phones and what to say in those scripts. And that's a void that is going on right now. So be able to be in a webinar with you today to kind of show you our perspective from data and how you can solve those problems for practices, I think is tremendous. So really excited to be here and to get into the weeds on what to do with your phones.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to take the phone side of it. You're going to take the data marketing side of it.
Yeah.
So I have been talking about this for a very long time. I believe the most important piece of technology in the dental office is your telephone. And many dentists who are watching this, I do want to back up too. If you're watching us live, if you're seeing this somewhere, we have at the end a QR code. You'll be able to scan it to get this whole PowerPoint. We're using a new software. So if we can't find a place to chat with you here, please come live onto YouTube. That's where we will have this video. You can put questions there. And Ryan and I are available for you and our teams after this to answer any questions and continue the conversation. So we want to be here as a resource for you guys. So I believe the most important piece of technology is the dental office. And if you're a dentist watching this, in the dental office is the phones. If you're a dentist watching this, you're probably like, no, it's my CEREC, it's my laser, it's my CAD cam. And all of those pieces of technologies are great. But if we're not answering our phones well, if we're not handling, do you accept my insurance? How much is a crown? Do you have weekend or night hours? If your team is not doing that well, we're missing opportunities to get the patients in to do the CEREC crowns or the laser or the full mouth rehab that you're trained to do. So understanding the importance of phones, respecting the importance of phones, making sure that the phones are being answered, that you know what's happening on the phones, and that your team is trained is the key to success for your dental office. So the very first thing, we kind of want to flow through this a little bit. The easiest thing you can do right now in your practice, and the reason we wanted to make sure we did this in November is there's still 2 months left of this year. This year is not over. And so little things that you can start to do right now to make an impact in the end of 2025 and into early 2026 is first, answer your phone. There are so many offices, and we both call into offices on a regular basis where we get voicemails or we get messages that say, if this call's important, we must be helping another patient, leave a message. If I'm a new patient calling your practice and you say on the voicemail, we must be helping another patient, leave a message, I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call another dental office. And so the first thing very much is just to answer your phones. Now, prior to Mango, which I'm going to talk about at the end of this, one of the solutions we have is there wasn't a lot of solutions about the missing phone calls for a long time. Back in the day when I started, and I started pre-computers, pre-internet, you would have maybe an answering service that you could forward your phones to. And those were pathetic at best. Then we found outsourcing, and there are great outsourcing companies out there that you can work with that can answer your phones and help at a remote location. But many offices still aren't doing that, and they're still missing phone calls. We now have a solution for your office to make sure that your calls are answered, which we're going to talk about later. But this is the key first foundation is at least between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday, your phone should be answered. I think it should be all the time, but if you can't do it all the time, at least make sure it's being answered Monday through Friday. The thing about what a lot of offices are realizing in dentists is you're not paying attention to your phones to see when are your phones ringing. Are you truly missing phone calls? So moving to a company like Mango, which is a VoIP phone system, is how you can actually start to pay attention to what's going on with your phones. Are they ringing? Are you missing calls? Because if you ask a lot of your team members, they would say, no, we're not missing any calls. But when you actually realize that they're doing 16 things at once and they don't even realize sometimes they miss calls, this is the most simplest thing that you can do right now to impact your practice. All right, give me some statistics around it.
Yeah, well, going back real quick, when you said one of the most important technologies to an office is their dental data and their phone system, it's 100% correct. So I spoke this morning to about 50 practices, and I asked who knows your phone answer rate and who's using a VoIP. and only one person raised their hands that actually know their phone data, and only four people in this room were using a voice over IP that gives them that data. And I was almost shocked by saying, you're missing out on one of the most important pieces to your operations that you don't even know the data with that. Talking a little bit about more on these numbers. So we analyzed 300 practices over a 4-year period on their phone information. It's 9.16 million calls, a substantial amount of calls. We took that information and try to break it up into what's the highest performing and what's the lower performing practices doing. And so if you look at the top 20% of practices, they answer that we analyze of these 389 percent of their calls. And that's fantastic. That's incredible. The bottom 80% answered only 71%. When you look at that 18-point gap, that is significant when it comes to the amount of new patients you're missing, but then current patient calls you're missing, and how much revenue that leads to. When you think about it, if you go to the next slide, we can kind of break down that a little bit more. So when we looked at this, that's 165,000 calls over 4 years that were missed. That's 13 to 20,000 missed new patient opportunities. And if you look at that, each new patient being worth $800 on their first initial month of visit or over 6 months, do the math on that. And that's, look at this, here we go. Now we're going to talk about some numbers here.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize there's a little bit of an off number in here before our presentation. So if you see this, it's a little bit, there's a couple of missed numbers in there, but you'll get the point here. That if you start to look at this from a 4-year loss, if 8% of your total inbound calls are new patients, that's $108,000 a year per practice. And that's $400,000 over the span of 4 years. If you're looking at just the minimum of 8% of your new patient or calls being new patients, if you go up to 12%, that's a $600,000 mistake by not answering your calls over 4 years. And why this is important is what we're seeing now, and we have data for September and October, and this is great to know. People usually worry about September being a little bit of a down month. Well, this year in some of the practices we work with, it was. They call it Sucktember. It was down. But here's the interesting thing. September and October demand was up. And this is what we found, though, is when you look at the percent of people converting off of those calls, it decreased significantly in September. So there was more demand, and a lot of that was through emergencies, less new patients because of the fact that people couldn't convert these calls. And this demand that we're seeing right now is similar to the 2009, 2010 recession, where there was a lot of increase in emergency dentistry because people just weren't getting routine care done because they didn't want to pay for it. But higher value treatment cosmetic is down. It was down back then too. The hygiene is consistent and was consistent back then as well. So we look at that as a snapshot in time, and where we are now, that's where we're at. High demand, but more difficult to convert, and that's where you come in, Laura, on how do you fix it?
Yeah, so we wanted to start with, if we haven't convinced you yet that it's worth looking at your phones, there's the financial breakdown, that it's worth it. Now we have to look at the reality of what it's like to work at the front desk of your dental office. And I think a lot of times dentists, you pass the front desk, you know that something should be happening with the phones, but many times you don't know the reality of what it's like to sit at the front desk. So I am a dental office manager. That's part of the reason I started training dentists and dental teams, is because I know what it's like to sit at the front desk of a dental office. This is what we face many times on a daily basis. So when we're talking about converting patients, when Ryan's talking about actually converting patients, we've got to focus on that one phone call, because that one phone call can make such a financial difference for our patients going forward. And that's not even talking about what they're expecting on that call, customer service. That's not even talking about how they were referred to us and if we're proving to them that we are a great practice or not. That's just the conversation that we're having. But the reality is we have 3 phone calls ringing. The doctor's coming up wanting to know where his patient is. The hygienist wants to know if fluoride's covered. There's a dental assistant who's called out sick. The toilet's overflowing. This is the reality of the front desk. So there's a couple things that we're going to talk about today that I really want to like hone in on because they're so vital to making a larger impact in your practice this month, this year, and into next year when you look at the full growth of the full potential of what a new patient is. So the very first thing is what I started with. If I'm calling your office as a new patient and I'm hitting a voicemail from the beginning, that is a first impression that people are receiving. So we spend lots of money to make that phone ring. We are doing Google ads, we're doing updating our website, we're asking people to put reviews out. We finally get the phone to ring. And when the patient hits a voicemail, basically what we're saying to them is you're not that important to us. Somebody in the office is more important. And so the very first thing is we need to find ways to not let our patients, and this isn't just our new patients, this is all of our patients, they shouldn't be receiving voicemails. Because if they're important to us, we're going to have somebody or something answer the phone and find out why they're calling. What is the intention for their phone call and making sure they get heard, and we're going to get back to them. So this is the first step of making sure that your phones are answered. The next thing is really making sure that your team understands how to handle the phone call. And when I said early on, scripts were the only way that was taught to help our team members answer phones. But my thing for scripts is if I have my script in front of me and I have to read this script and Ryan calls in as a new patient, I'm going to be more focused on what the script says and am I answering these questions in the right order than I am in the conversation that I'm having with Ryan. Think about it like when you call a credit card company or a bank, you can tell when they're reading a script. You're calling because you're mad at something and they're like, thank you for being a great client for the last 15 years. And you're like, oh my God, are you not listening to me? Right.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that our team members understand the importance of the phones, understand the priority of answering the phones. And then when they answer the phone, they need to know how to answer the phone, which I always talk about answering from heart. I want our employees, if they're good on the phones, I want them to be them. I want them to be honest, be authentic, be energetic, not be robotic, right? I want to have the attention on the patient, not on the script. I really want to listen to what the patient needs. What is the intention of their phone call? What are they calling for? And then I want to make sure that my team members are confident in handling all the questions. Do you take my insurance? How much is a crown? Are you in network? Our team members need to be confident because patients are calling our practice and they want to feel like they're calling the right place. And if I have a team member who answers the phone insecure, distracted, laughing at some conversations going over here, half listening to the patient, hurrying them up because we've got to get on to the next thing, our patients are going to feel that. So, really taking the time to train our humans to be good on the phone is key and answer the phone with heart and with a smile. So, we need our employees to realize that though there's 15 things going on, the most important thing when I pick up that phone is that phone call. And when we sit at the front desk of a dental office, we wear multiple hats. We're a scheduler, we're an insurance coordinator, we're a financial coordinator, we're a psychiatrist, we're a babysitter, we're a plumber, and we're a receptionist. When I answer that phone, when that phone rings, I need to take off all the other hats and put on my receptionist hat. How does a receptionist sound when they answer the phone? They're chipper, they're happy, they're focused on the patient, they're excited that the phone's ringing. If you call into, and I suggest have friends and listen to your calls in your dental office. A lot of times we answer the phone in a dental office more like an insurance coordinator or a financial analyst. We're at your doctor's office. This is Laura. How can I help you? Think about this from the patient perspective, right? I want someone to be happy that I'm calling. I don't want to feel like I'm interrupting them. I want them to hear me. I want to know what the intention of the call is. Why are you calling us today? What can I do to help you? And I want to listen. Some of our employees get so darn efficient that they just, what's your insurance? What day can you come in? Do you have your, have you got your FMX, your bite wings? Thank you. We'll see you on Tuesday. And they hang up. And we don't even build any rapport with these people. It takes a lot for our patients, potential patients, to call our offices to book the appointment. We really want to make sure we're giving them our heart and we're smiling, right? They can feel that nonverbal skill. They can feel that nonverbal when we're on the phones. So offering our new patients exceptional customer service from the very first phone call, from the very first time I answer the phone is key. I'm going to lead at the end of this talking about our current patients also. All of this makes a difference, not just with our new patients, but our existing patients. Because every single time our patients call our practice, I want them to remember, oh, yeah, I love this office. I forgot about how great they are in the front office, right? So the whole thing is that our team members, anyone answering the phones, really need to be trained on how to answer the phones well. And a lot of times we hire people and we say, do you know how to answer the phones? And they say yes. And we go, here you go. And we don't really make sure that they know how to answer our phones right. They know how to answer a phone, but we need to make sure in our practices and in your practice, your phones are answered the way you want them answered. So training is key. Then understanding what is the difference between answering the phone and the intention behind answering the phone. So many dental offices are busy. Everyone's busy. We're all doing things. We're busy. We're busy calling insurances. We're busy in turning over rooms. We're busy sharpening instruments. We're busy answering the phones, but we're doing it as an action without an intention. When I pick up that phone, my job is to find the intention of what that person is calling us for and handle it to reach the goal of our practice, which is more new patients, guiding our patients in. Honestly, what I like to say is putting their butts in the chair. My job when I answer that phone is to get our patient to schedule and show up for the appointments so that my clinical team can do everything that they need to do to help our patients keep their teeth for life. So if I understand what my intention is with every phone call, I can now help the practice reach the goal. And my part of that is with the phone call. But a lot of times our team members who are answering the phones just do the job, but they don't understand the intention behind it. So when you look at what is the intention of your phone call, I mean, if it's a new patient, of course, we're trying to get them to schedule the appointment. If they're calling to talk about their bill, we want to make sure that we handle their questions around their bill. If they're calling to ask insurance, we want to make sure that we handle their insurance questions. If they have family members to be scheduled, we want to make sure that we're doing that. If they've got other issues, if they're mad about a bill, we need to know how to address these phone calls. And so many times we have team members who might address one and miss the rest of the intentions potentially with this call. So, really sitting down with your team members, putting them through training, practicing these calls. We're going to talk about specific calls, role playing with them, helping them understand from their own verbal skills how to say these things so they're confident and comfortable to handle all these issues helps your phone calls be more successful, helps more patients schedule their appointment, refer their friends, come in and get the treatment done when our team understands the importance behind every single one of those phone calls. All right, so what's some of the realities about this?
Yeah, so we measure the conversions of these calls, which is everything you just talked about. And when you start to look at the conversions in the industry, typically we see around a 75%. So, every out of every 100 calls that you answer as a new patient, then you 75 will schedule. Well, that's dropped down to closer to 60%, and in some cases 55%, 50%. And this is very shocking at this point because what we're seeing is exactly what you said when they're going through and the practices that are just stick to the exact same thing is almost like that script type mentality. When then someone says, and this is shocking, when they say, okay, do you take my insurance? Yes, I do. Or what's your insurance? Well, yes, we do take that. The amount of people who are still not scheduling an appointment after they find out that practice has scheduled or takes their insurance is the biggest we've ever seen. Typically, you might see one or two out of 100 calls that doesn't convert once you say they take their insurance. We've seen that on average around 8 to 10%, and
Wow.
that's mind-boggling. And it comes down to the fact that the team cannot answer the questions that come along with that. And when you start to really look into the numbers of that, it becomes substantial because you think about even a current patient. A current patient may not schedule appointment based upon this. And so when you look at it, 20 to 30% of The like PPO patients we're seeing are not scheduling because of the fact they just can't figure out how to say, oh, well, how much is my copay going to be? What's this going to be? And so that's a big deal. And so when you take a look at the production, also, so there's two things here. There's the fact that people are very focused on financial dentistry right now. So how much does it cost? You take my insurance. How am I going to pay for this? You can actually start to see this from production per hour of from associates. And associates is a good example to look at because they're not the owner, so they usually have a lower production. We've seen practices around 485, 500 or higher of these associates per hour, down to under 300 per hour. And so you look at it now, you have two places here. You know, the front desk cannot convert these patients calling in. And then if they do get in, some of these doctors are not able to convert based upon the fact that they're not able to show how important this treatment is. So they're walking out the door with planned treatment like accepted. And so this is a big deal because it mimics that 2008, 2010 recession pattern that we talked about earlier. And so until you can stop this scenario, everyone on your team needs to understand people are going to ask questions on finances right now. How do I overcome it? And how is the doctor going to overcome it? And so, and this is where it gets a little interesting too, because now you start to think about these patients not accepting the treatment. So let's just look across the board of everyone doing this. Now, what happens is when that patient doesn't accept it, now eventually they're going to get into an emergency situation where something bad happens because they didn't do the preventative or the care that was needed at that time. And so your team needs to be able to set up to get those patients in the door when they call. So it could be happening in your office, could be other offices aren't converting, and now I get a call saying, hey, I'm in a lot of pain here, or I call in and say, I'm in a lot of pain here. And if that practice can't say, come on in, we're going to get you in, we'll take care of us, they're going to go to the next practice. So you have this cycle going on where people aren't accepting, one, they're not getting into the practice, two, they're not accepting treatment, three, now they're going to have an emergency. And these practices are, what we're seeing, not prepared to be able to convert this. This is what was interesting in October. These numbers just came out. October, we found, as a company for us, was the highest production month we'll ever have, or we've ever had at the practices we work with. But this is where it gets crazy. It was feast or famine. The practices that were answering 90% of their calls, converting 85%, getting people in that day, converting the treatment, blew up in October because that demand in September was higher than what we anticipated, so they capitalized it on October. The practices that are at 55% answer rate, 60% conversion rate are struggling, and then their associates are struggling. So this is something that is really a big deal, especially going into the end of the year, because with the end of the year, what you're going to have is people wanting to use their benefits. You're going to see more emergencies. It always happens in December. There's more emergencies because practices close down, so they want to get in. Something, if my doctor's closed, I'm going to go to a practice that's open. And so you have this, effect where you're losing revenue month after month. You're losing current patients, and this starts to just get bigger and bigger. And so then if you're in an area that is very competitive, you're going to lose your current patients plus new patients, and pretty soon 3 or 4 months later you're like, what has happened? And that's where, if you're on your systems, if your operations are high and you're able to convert, you can win right now in dentistry.
So let me just point this out again, because this is something right here that has not changed. So when new patients call into your practice, they typically ask, do you take my insurance? What are your weekend hours or nighttime hours, or what are your hours, or how much is something? So what Ryan is saying here, and the reason we think that this is profound to talk about, is we no longer can just say, do you take my insurance? Yes. Because patients need more. They are asking, most of our new patients are calling in and they're asking one of these questions because all they know is their pocketbook or their insurance book. That's what they know. What they should be doing is calling our practice saying, does your doctor have any lawsuits against them? How much CE has your dentist done this year?
Yes.
How great are your reviews? Like, they only call and ask about insurance book and pocketbook questions, right? So when they say, do you take my insurance? They're worried about money. It is a time right now where we are not, Ryan was talking about, if you're in a highly competitive area, we're not even competing with other dentists in this question. We're competing with other things that patients have to pay money for, right? We're competing with school bills. We're competing with loans. We're competing with maybe their vacation. And so if our team members, I'm going to talk about this, I teach to say something positive at this moment. But if we just say something positive and let it drop, it's not enough anymore. I take it also to the fact of presenting treatment to patients, like Ryan was saying with associates. When we present treatment to our patients, if our patient goes, "Oh, I can't afford it," and we say, "Okay, we'll put a watch on it and call us when you can," patients are walking out of the door, right? Or if we're like, "Well, can you finance it?" And the patient says no, they're walking out of the door. We need to be more qualified and more comfortable talking about money with our patients because it is a pertinent issue for them in their life right now. And not that we should be allowing patients to choose us because we're the least expensive or because we've got the most, discounts. It's more that we need to create a value around our practice. We need to be comfortable as team members to talk about money because that's what our patients are concerned with. And we need to convert the conversation from the money to the thing that matters. But if your team members are not comfortable with that or good at that, we lose the opportunity to convert these patients.
Yeah,
So,
Laura, can
yeah,
I can
yeah,
I add really quick to that? So this is
sure.
interesting. When I was looking at the slides earlier, and I knew you were going to talk about this. One of the things that we do on the websites that we build for practices is we address this right off the bat, and we know that the questions that are answered are exactly this when they go to the website. So we say, people want to know how much does it cost, when can I get it done, does it hurt? And so it's the same thing that they're looking on the website that they're asking. We know from a data standpoint from the market that this is what they're interested in. What's interesting is there's a disconnect there. If you see it on the website, they answer these questions, but I call in and they can't answer any of them, then
Right.
it's confusing because wait, the website told me this, but your staff can't even answer like the simple questions. And so it backs up the data that we have is exactly what you're saying is what they're looking for because we know that based upon the searches.
Exactly. And I'm going to even add to this, like you and I could go on for hours about this. I'm going to add a lot of times, this is where data comes in. That I love that Ryan and I are doing this because I'll have dentists who will say, we're not getting enough new patient phone calls. Well, if I'm in the office, what happens is a patient will call in and say, "Do you have weekend hours?" And our team member says, "No, we don't have weekend hours." And they hang up. And the doctor walks up and says, "Did a new patient call?" And the front office team member says, "No." Well, that was a new patient that called, a potential new patient. Any phone call that's not an existing patient is a potential new patient. And the questions they're asking, we just need to be better in control of how to handle them. And I love what you said about the website. Your team should know what the website says, right?
Yes.
Your team should know how to handle these questions so they align because when a patient hears about our practice, the two places they're going to go typically is the website or your reviews. And when they go to the website and it says one thing, and then they call your office and it gives, like, if your website says we are amazing, top notch, we take care of our patients, but then they call your office and they get a voicemail, that conflicts, right?
Yes.
If they read reviews and it says go to this office because they're amazing, they answered all my questions, but they call your office and your team member doesn't help them with their questions, it's conflicting, or it's solidifying that you are a great office and I should come to you. And we have to remember that our patients, they're spending thousands of dollars to come to our practices. Most of them are not excited about it. So we need to go above and beyond because like I said, we're not competing with other offices many times. We're competing with other places that they would rather spend their money than with us. So we need to give our patients amazing customer service, which means we need to help them with these questions, which leads me to how do we handle these questions? So I've been teaching this part for a super long time. And then this webinar is actually added on new to it because of the questions we're seeing right now from what Ryan's team has pulled. But whenever a patient calls and asks a question, we always want to say yes or something positive. So if they call us and they say, "Do you take my insurance? How much is something? Do you have weekend hours?" We want to frame that question in such a way that we want to frame that answer so that we can take control of the phone call. Now, all of my insurance people are like, "Well, but don't say yes if we're not in network." I'm not saying you say yes if you're not in network. But what I am saying is you say something positive. Like, we have a lot of patients that have that insurance, or we have a lot of patients who, who are in network for that insurance, or yes, In certain circumstances, we have afternoon or evening hours. In certain circumstances, we have Saturday hours. Am I going to come in to clean your kid's teeth on a Saturday? No. Am I going to come in to do a $10,000 case on a Saturday? Absolutely, right? The whole goal was saying something positive or yes is for us to take control of the phone call. If I say no, no, we don't take your insurance. No, we don't have weekend hours. Our crown is $3,000 or whatever. What it's doing is it's stopping the communication with that patient. And when we already know that our patients are calling in because they only know the questions they know to ask are insurance and money, what I want to do is I want to handle those questions so that I can get in control of the phone call. I want to get the patient in communication with me. I want to know more about why they're asking that question. I want them to talk to me. I will still address their questions. I will still answer their questions. I will still help them with their insurance. I will still help them with the fees. But I want to find out more about this person first. I want to build some rapport with them. I want to give them the attention they need so that I can find out why I'm even answering that question. Like, why are they even asking this question in the first place? So, a conversion guidelines that work is welcome that opening question. Whatever they're asking you, understand that just comes from their frame of, I don't know what to ask, right? It would be like me calling a fake lawn company. Let's say I'm going to put fake grass in my yard. I don't know what to ask. So I'm going to say, do you have any specials this month? And is there a guarantee on your lawn? Because I don't know what to ask, right? They're going to explain to me, if they're good, why their company's better, how they do free estimates, they should come to my house to show me. So like, I don't know what to ask, neither do our patients. So when they ask these questions, your team shouldn't get the attitude of, oh, everyone's always asking about insurance. Everybody's always asking about money, because that's all they know. But then what I want to do is take control of the phone call, ask questions so that I can build rapport with the patient. I can find out the intention of the call. I can build value with the patient about why they need to come to our practice. And then I need to get them in and scheduled to come see our office to meet our doctor, whatever your scenario is. What happens a lot of times are common conversion killers, which are leading with limitation. We don't take your insurance. I'm sorry, we're not in network, right? Any no answers are going to cut communication with the patient. If somebody asks how much something is and we go right to price, we don't have an opportunity to find out why they're asking. We don't have an opportunity to build value to what we're doing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't give a quota price if they ask 2 or 3 times and they really beat you up for the price, but I don't think we should rush to the price. I want to find out more about why they're calling and why they're asking, and I want to build value to our practice. Passive scheduling. You want to come in for an appointment? Great. Friday at 5:00. Okay, cool. See you Friday, and hang up. And again, remember, our team members have 15 things going on, and they may not realize that they're passive scheduling, but we need to be very confident with what we're doing on the phone call, which means not being distracted, really paying to the emotional cues on the other end of the phone call. I talk about this when it comes to confirmation calls. We make confirmation calls a lot of times and we miss the emotional cues on the other side. I can tell you on that phone call that patient wasn't planning on coming, but they said the word yes, but they weren't planning on coming. So we really need to get good at listening to what that conversation is and what's happening on the phone. And really, it's about information overload. We tend to we get so in our dental box thinking, and we talk about all the dental things, and do you have your FMX, and what's your insurance, and we stop and we don't think about the fact that these are people, these are humans who have real issues. And the number one issue right now is overcoming financial concerns. So if somebody calls and says, they're asking, the exam is whatever, the x-rays are this, when we're answering the phone and giving out the list of a shopping list of how much a crown is, how much the cleaning is, you have to come in for your exam before we can do a cleaning. We have to see if you have a deep cleaning. We need to see if you need to have perio. Like, we're giving them a laundry list of things that's just stopping the conversation to show value for them to come into the practice. A better way and a right response to talk about anything when we're going through price is really talk about the investment, talk about that this is important for their dental health, create value, talk to them about payment options. If a patient says how much is something, break it down and say, you know what, we have payments options as low as $10 a month for you. We can get you in here. We can go through your treatment plan. The doctor will do a complete exam. We will find a payment option that works for you. The goal here is to keep the opportunity open to get the patient in and not close the door on that phone call, because patients are worried about coming to the dentist, getting drills and needles in their mouths, and having to pay us thousands of dollars and think we're just going to lay them back in the chair and we're going to give them a bill. We need to make sure that they are comfortable with the fact that we are going to go through all of the scenarios with them when they're in the office. So a hesitant PPO patient. So a patient calls in asking if you take their PPO. And again, this is the big thing right now, because if we just say yes, that's not enough. What we need to do is actually talk about, we understand many of our patients have that insurance. We understand right now it's really, there's a lot going on. I mean, shoot, a good percentage of our people aren't even getting paid because the government shut down right now. But we will make sure that anything that you do, we're going to verify your insurance. We're going to help you maximize your benefits. We're going to be here so that you can be comfortable with anything that we do before we do it in our practice. And there are certain words and ways we say things that this is where we really need to role play with our employees, because we want to say things like many of our patients have that same concern, right? We have patients who have the same concern you do. That makes them not feel alone. We want to talk about, whether you were in network or not, there's going to be a small difference. We will go over everything with you to give you an informed decision. These words matter because a small difference, we're making it seem like not a big deal. And if you think about it, out of pocket, it's going to be $27 more. It's really not a big deal. But if we just go, no, we're not in network, sorry, or, we don't know it, we have to verify your benefits, we're closing the door on the patient. So we want to use words that allow them to feel like they're going to be in control, that we're going to help them, that we're going to help them with their benefits and maximize their benefits. When we have patients who are price shoppers, right? So a patient's hesitant about coming in because they want to know how much something is. I want to handle the question, but I want to handle it down the road. And I want instead to redirect the conversation from the price to why are they asking? What is it they need? How do they know they even need this thing? Because honestly, one dentist might diagnose a crown and another dentist might diagnose a 3-surface filling. One dentist might, want to put a watch on something, and we don't know, and we can't diagnose over the phone. So my goal when somebody calls and says, how much is something, is to redirect the phone call, to get them in conversation, to give them a range. If they push for it, I'm going to give them a range. And the whole point and my whole goal is to get the patient talking to me so I can find out why they're asking these questions. Most of the time, the patients probably have a story that they've had a bad experience, that they received a bill they weren't expecting, in fact, if you go out and read reviews online, most of the time at dental offices, it has to do with money and insurance. And if your office handles these issues better, you can make the patient feel more comfortable by getting them into that conversation than it is to give them a price. You're probably not the least expensive dentist in town, and we wouldn't want the patient choosing a dentist on price anyway. We want to make sure the patient understands how valuable your practice is and that you are going to help them answer all their questions before they do anything and not choose just on price. So we've got insurance, the PPOs, the do you take my insurance? We've got the price patients. Now we got the ones who really don't even understand how their insurance works. And the problem that I see a lot of times with dental offices is that we get in the weeds about in and out of network, and we're in this plan and we're not in that plan. And a patient is overwhelmed with insurance. My job is not to educate them on all the ins and outs of insurance. When they call about insurance, what I want to do is I want them to feel confident that we are going to help them through this confusing insurance question. We're going to verify everything. We're going to sit down with you. We're going to go through a treatment plan. We're going to explain everything during your appointment. My job on this phone call is to get the patient to schedule their appointment to get their butt in the chair because I want to build confidence with this patient. I want them to know that we're going to take the time to help them understand their insurance. And doing this over the phone is not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is get the patient in the chair. Let's get everything verified. And we're going to be here as a partner with you with this confusing part of insurance. So this takes not only training for your employees, making sure that your employees are confident in this, making sure that you've role played in practice, but it also takes emotional intelligence. It takes your team members understanding that I need to listen well when a patient's asking questions. I need to make them feel heard. I need to show empathy. I need to match their communication style. If they're very excited and talking fast, I need to match that. If they're real chill and laid back, because if they're real chilled and laid back and I come in all excited and I'm going to scare them, right? I need to match the person on the phone to let them know that they're not a number, that they're not an insurance code, that they're not a tooth, but they are a human. And I respect they've got their issues, their insurance, and our job is to make sure we take care of them. And that's included with all of the questions that they have. But again, we've got 16 phone calls going on. And we need to prioritize when I pick up the phone, like this lady here, I need to realize that my job is to be the receptionist and to answer these questions and help the patient schedule their appointment to our practice. So when we get any objections, which is the key thing right now, it's to understand patients don't know what to ask. So we want to acknowledge them. We want to validate their question. It is okay. We hear it every day. We know this, but this is the first time they're talking about their insurance. This is the first time they're worried about it. We need to take control of the call, understand that they're asking these things because that's all they know to ask. We need to let them know that they're calling the right office. We have the best dentist. We have the best hygienist. Our team is going to help you with your insurance verification. We're going to make sure we offer you the best payment options. And we're going to make sure that they feel confident with our practice. And then we're going to secure a commitment that they're going to come in. The last thing that's not on here, I will tell you that is super important is that then when we get them secured in the commitment to come in, the appointment needs to happen in the next 2 to 3 days, not 2 to 3 weeks. Because if we've got them feeling better about our practice, we've got them feeling good about coming in. And what happens is if we schedule them too far out, they forget about this conversation. They meet people who tell them dental phobia stories. They get a bill in their mail from their kids' college, and then they cancel on us. So now that we've gotten this patient to the point where they're ready to schedule an appointment, get them in as soon as possible. Have your schedule blocked so you can get these patients in to get the treatment done. There's awesome technology now, which I'll pass this over to Ryan to talk about how now we can manage these calls to know that these things are happening.
Yeah, so one of the things you can do is you can look at recording. These calls are recorded. So like Mango has a great ability to record all the calls. You can listen to them. You can go in. You can find and spot. We do this a lot with the practices we work with. We'll go in and just spot check some of their calls, and we'll listen to and say, okay, ourselves as humans, we'll go back and say, okay, you converted, 10 out of the 15 new patients that called. So that's simple. Anybody can do that, especially, Mango users can do that all day long. Then there's AI analysis that you can do and put these in there too. You can take and pull the calls out. Mango has some great tools in there that can assist with all of this too. There's integrations into your software, being able to pull in phone calls into software, be able to track it that way. There's the assistants like Mango Voice, the AI assistant that can come in and answer calls that you cannot answer, and then make sure those are getting answered, and at least having a contact with something rather than the call going unanswered. So there's a lot of technology out there. It's moving very quickly. I just look into it, check it out, really make sure that it makes sense for your office, I would say. Check all the Mango tools because they're great. But yeah, I think just evaluating and using technology, and if you want to, just go back to the old fashioned and listen to the calls. I mean,
Yeah,
it's that easy.
Well, I was going to say, so here's the thing. I remember when we first got VoIP phones, right? And so now we have the ability to record calls. And I remember as a new office manager, I was like, nobody's recording my calls. I don't want my calls recorded. I don't want to. But now I see the value in recording calls. But honestly, most doctors, we say you should listen to the phone calls. You don't have time to listen to the calls, right? We say that the employees should listen to the calls. We have enough stuff to do. We barely get to go to the bathroom. So the cool thing about Mango, for example, is a couple of things. One is you can see the calls and see the sentiment of the calls. So you
Hmm.
can see right there the calls that were not a thumbs up green went great. We can go
Yes.
back to those calls. We also can coach our team members more on bring to me your best call and then your call that you want some coaching on. Let's talk about this because if we only look at the bad calls, our team members are not going to want their calls recorded. We're not going to want to go. We want to talk about where are you doing great and where could we do a little bit better. The next thing is now all the calls at Mango with Mango AI is we can transcribe the calls and put them right into the PMS. So before we knew that our phones were ringing, right? I remember when we first got VoIP phones, we realized most of our calls become between 11 and 2. And that's when we send our best people to lunch. It's like, don't send your best people on the phones to lunch when our
Hmm.
call volume's the highest, then, right? Now with Mango AI, we know what's happening with the actual phone call because there's actually a transcription that goes into your PMS. So I know, think of myself as an employee, I know that I can hang up on this phone call and the notes from that call are going into the PMS. So I don't have to chicken scratch everything. I can focus on the patient, focus on the conversation, and it's going to be transcribed. And then, like I said earlier, we have the opportunity to outsource phones, but now, like you're saying, is we have AI assistants. And that's the coolest, newest thing right now, which is at Mango, we have Margot. And Margot is an AI phones assistant to help your team for the calls that they're missing. So Margot is not here to replace your employees. Your employees should be trained on all of the things we've talked about in this webinar. But sometimes your employees can't get to the calls. Like we said, 30% of your calls are missed, nights, weekends. The calls are not being answered, and patients don't want to leave a voicemail. So now we have Margot trained to help with these calls and trained by the training that's needed to make sure that the patients leave the message, that they have the conversation, they tell us what the intention is, and then we make them feel confident that they're going to get the answer they need from our team. So AI is the newest thing, and AI needs to be phased in. So the number one thing I would say right now is with like phones, for example, stop the bleeding that you're doing right now. We're missing too many phone calls. Patients, there's no excuse anymore. Patients should not get a voicemail. Patients should not have to call in, leave a message, and wait for your team to call them between Monday and Friday, 8 to 5. Our patients are calling at 10 at night when their tooth is hurting and they put their kids to bed and they want to know, are you accepting new patients? Do you take my insurance? They want to know these things when they want to get a text that says, can I schedule an appointment? They want to have a conversation to feel like they're being heard. So phase in AI. AI is growing. It's a new technology. In the future, there'll be a lot more opportunities where AI will be the first one to answer the phones and route the important calls to the humans. But right now, start with just the calls that you're missing, right? Stop missing every call. Now, we have offices now using Margot for their calls, and they went from about a 25% leave rate of a voicemail where patients would actually leave a voicemail so they're up in the 60 and 70% range where people will talk to Margot over the weekend and on nights. So this means patients are actually having a conversation with AI, telling Margot what they need, why they're calling, what their questions are, what their issue is. And the team is walking in on Monday morning, not with just a voicemail that Ryan says, call me on Monday, but actually knowing why Ryan is calling and what questions Ryan
Yes.
has. And they feel secure that the team is going to get back to them the next time they're in the office. So this is where you can start to integrate technology to help you with the phones. Quick wins that you can do right now. Update what you do with your team. Practice with your team. Make a call checklist. Make sure that your team knows how to handle these objections. Make sure that anybody answering your phone knows what these questions are and why patients are asking them, and role play. Your employees are not going to like that. They've never liked that. We are humans. I know when I'm speaking at events and I say we're going to role play, 3 or 4 people get up and go to the bathroom. But when they're more comfortable role playing, when we get on a phone call, they're going to be more comfortable with the patients that are calling. So make sure that you are investing in your team to be the best they can on the phones.
And this one here, we've already went over this, but there's one thing that sticks out on this slide. It's just strong training equals higher conversions and better reviews. That right away, I mean, that's a big piece because that says, hey, invest in training, answer the calls, get more conversions. People will be satisfied, get those reviews out, and those reviews will then help you in the marketing situation. So that, just think about it from that simplicity.
And
If we go
if
to
you,
the, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you haven't right now, if you're watching this, go back and look at your October numbers and just even make sure that your phones are being answered. And if you don't know what
Correct.
your October numbers are, call Mango.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the next slide here really goes into just going back to what I talked about. When you look at the data set that we have, we're seeing an increase in organic traffic. We're seeing an increase in people clicking schedule online. When we saw a 37.5% increase of phone call conversions from the website over last year, but we only saw a 19% increase in new patients over last year. So I mean, that tells you, the data tells you right here, demand is up. People just can't convert as well as what they did. So, I just want to throw another data point on this. If you go down and you look at maybe some of the issues on the next slide here, will tell us a little bit about why this is occurring too, or not why, but how you can overcome it from a different perspective than just always training. So you can look at and say, okay, how many people are calling me on the weekends? It's usually like less than 2% calls come after you're closed. But one thing that comes up that I think is very important is if you get like say 60%, and Mango, you can look at this and it tells you right on Mango, if you get 60% of your calls between 8 and 11, then you need to staff heavier in the morning because that could be why you're not answering as many calls and converting as many. And then analyze the call length, the outcomes, and what's going on. If your team is getting a bunch of calls in the morning, they will not be able to spend as much time with the patient, and they can convert less. And this is all data points that you can get again from Mango, and then optimize your scheduling around all of what's going on with the amount of calls coming in and when you need to schedule. And then here's a big one from a marketing side is track the true conversions and not the clicks. So what you really want to do is you want to look at phone data should verify if marketing leads are actually coming in. So if your marketing says, hey, you had 100 Google ad clicks, great. But what does that actually mean? Then you say, okay, well, they actually clicked it and they called you from there. Well, you should be able to look at Google or a Mango and say, did my phone calls go up this month? It's that simple. Did I receive more inbound phone calls? And then you look at the total patients that called from that. So you take the lead of the phone data, or take the marketing, take the phone data, take the number of scheduled new patients, and you can compare those and see if they correlate. Just remember this, 8 to 12% of inbound calls are typically new patients. It varies by the type of practice you are. So you can use this data to confirm if you're actually able to convert and are actually getting more new patients. Another thing too is we really, like I said, we start with phone. Our company starts with phone data. Every practice, the very first metric we look at, and we'll send out messages and say, "Hey, we noticed your phone answer rate was down this week. We noticed that you're getting a lot more calls on Monday." And so we're doing this for the practices we work with. But I really implore you to do this every Monday. Just sit down and do this with your team and look at your data. Have a whiteboard every day that you put your call answer rate. You put metrics on there based upon that.
And the things that you track will improve.
Yes, 100%.
All right. So we focused a lot on the new patients. I'm just going to end this time together talking about that we actually have one other major issue that we haven't talked about here. And maybe this is a future one for us to go through, but we have a backdoor problem. So we spend so much money and attention on the front door, and we get these patients in, and then we're losing them out of the back door. And I think that the two reasons that we lose patients out of the back door is because we're not giving amazing customer service, or our systems are broken. So our customer service, we need more time to spend on the phones with our patients. We need more time to present treatment and have our team be better at presenting treatment, because these are big decisions for our patients. But our team is also busy doing things that we don't have enough time to do this. Or our systems are broken. Our phones are not getting answered. We're not doing handoffs well. We're not running a morning huddle. So we have opportunities to fix these things. And I'm all about implementing and bringing in AI slowly to help your team have more time in the day. And it's not just for the team members to have more time, but your patients are going to start expecting it. Like I said, there will be a time in the future where patients are not going to be okay to leave a voicemail. They're not going to be okay to have a patient or an employee call them back. So, starting to look at where you're potentially dropping the balls, where things are not happening, is the beginning of how you can start to lean into technology to help you. One great example of this is the Mango AI notes, which I talked about. The notes automatically go into the PMS when somebody hangs up. That's saving your team an hour and a half of just putting in notes when they actually even remember. Half the time I get up from a phone call and I run somewhere else and I totally forgot to put those notes in. And then the patient tells us they told us something on the phone and we have no record of it. So start looking at areas right now where your team is potentially dropping the ball and find ways that you can use AI to start to pick up some of these things, right? The AI notes, the AI phone agents. There's other great technology out there that's coming our way, but embrace it because just like I said, I started in dental before the internet. And now if somebody were to come into my office and say, I don't use the internet, that would be weird. In the future, for somebody to say, I don't use AI it's not going to be, right? So really starting to recognize that AI is here. There are tools that you can use right now in your practice. One of them is ChatGPT. I've written a book on brush up on AI. Feel free to find the book, find the chat on ChatGPT, and start asking questions of things that you can start to do to give your team more time so they can spend time on the phone, right? So that they can have more facing time with your patients. So again, AI can help you along the way, but you still have to have your team master relationships, master the conversation, master your growth. If you scan this QR code, at any point you watch this video, this will be recorded. We'll save it on all of our channels. Ryan's information's there. My information is there. Mango's a phone call away. My CMOshare is a phone call away. Scan this QR code and you can have this entire PowerPoint. And any final words, Ryan? I appreciate you coming on and doing this with me.
Yeah, the biggest thing I would say is the advice that you gave today is phenomenally invaluable because it's something that, data can point you in this direction. But unless you're implementing a system or a tool to actually fix the problem, all day long we can tell our practices answer the calls more, convert more. This, I would say, really think through this. Go through slide by slide if you're a practice who's struggling with this and figure out how you can implement Laura's techniques to actually increase the call answers, conversions, and make more money.
And stay tuned to Mango because we got fun stuff coming up in 2026 to help your team with all of these things having to do with answer your phone. So we are here to help you. We hope you guys have an amazing November. For those that are here live, thank you. For those that aren't, when this is on YouTube, ask questions. Ryan and I will watch it and we will help along the way. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.